I unfortunately had a very traumatic birth with my daughter 18 months ago. I had a very long labour of nearly 40 hours, and after delivery I started bleeding very heavily, and I had to be rushed into emergency theatre for surgery for nearly 2 hours, and of course was separated from my daughter. And it was obviously the most traumatic experience of my life. I genuinely thought I was going to die on the operating table, and it was really that experience which opened my eyes to birth trauma. And it's since then that I started this national campaign after a number of other mothers across the UK started to write to me to share their experiences, and there was clearly a need for their voices to be heard by the government.
Were you shocked by some of the evidence and some of those letters and that correspondence you received?
So firstly, I was overwhelmed by the sheer volume that we received for our inquiry. We opened a call publicly for evidence, and we received over 1,300 submissions, predominantly from mothers, but also from healthcare professionals, fathers and wider families. And it's fair to say that the testimony was pretty shocking. And what was very clear was that it was not just one trust or certain parts of the UK, but it was really a national issue. And that's really why my headline recommendation to the Prime Minister in my report today is that we must have a standardised maternity strategy in this country. And I think that he should publish a national maternity improvement strategy, which sets out very clearly what all hospital trusts should provide in terms of level of care for women.
Can I ask you a little bit more about your own experience and some of that evidence you heard as well of what is it like to be a mum in a situation where you are worried about, as you say, your own life, and yet you feel that you're not listened to?
Well, that's really the headline of my report, is listen to mums. I mean, mums know what they need, and I was really shocked to hear stories of mothers asking for help and not being given it. I mean, a prime example would be something like access to pain relief during labour. It was shocking to me how many women weren't offered that at all, and if they were, it was just something really basic like paracetamol. So a lot of our recommendations, and we have a headline overarching recommendation on this maternity strategy, but I also have 12 very specific policy points which I think address each of these in turn. If you take, for example, birth injuries, which is something that I personally experienced, at the moment it's not standard for birth injuries training to be rolled out in all hospital trusts, and we have a very good bundle which was already designed by the Royal College of Obstetrics and Gynaecology, and it seems to me very straightforward that we should be rolling that out to all parts of the UK, so that depending on where you live you're definitely not being offered a different level of care.
You are part of, the Conservative government, and I'm sure you're aware that many maternity health scandals in the past which haven't been acted on in a way that some of those people who put those forward would find to be satisfactory. Are you confident this one will be different?
Well, I'm a backbench MP, and all I can do is lobby the Prime Minister, but firstly it's very heartening to see the remarks by the Health Secretary today and the Chief Executive of NHS England, and they clearly have read my report. They were shocked at the harrowing stories that it included, and they have committed to taking action. And I'm waiting to hear this evening at our event in Parliament what the recommendations will be implemented and accepted by the NHS. But I think it's really important that we started this conversation, because whilst there have been other reports looking at maternity, this was very specifically looking at birth trauma, so looking at what happens in childbirth and specifically the aftercare for mothers. And it's a fact that 30,000 women every year are going to develop post-traumatic stress disorder because of the fact they've been through a traumatic birth. And at the moment, if you want access to perinatal mental health, you will not be offered it if you don't live in the right area which has that service. So one of my specific recommendations is to end the postcode lottery and to make sure that services like that are rolled out to all parts of the United Kingdom.